my 5 most important non-conference games. All right. So I spent a lot of time thinking about this one. And at the top of the list for me is number 2, Ohio State versus number 5, Notre Dame. This according to the AP. I also have Ohio State number 2, and I think I have Notre Dame number 6 in my rankings. I think that this game is going to set the table for both of these programs going down the rest of the year. Notre Dame can pull off the upset that Oregon could last year. We're going to be talking about Notre Dame as being a national title contender because we know how good Ohio State is. That's what that means. If Ohio State wins, same as it ever was, one of the 2 best teams in all of college football. If they win by a lot, yo, man, we're going to have some real knee-jerk reactions about Notre Dame and some real knee-jerk reactions about Ohio State. So much so that now you won't find anybody that's looking at Ohio State's regular season schedule and is willing to say that they're not going to win at least 11 games, if not 10. And anytime that you're the dude that says they're going to win 11 or 10, everybody wants to know, who are they losing to, right? Who do you bet on to beat Ohio State? And that's why they're one of the 2 best teams in college football for us in the preseason. None of us feel comfortable picking against Ohio State. None of us feel comfortable picking against Alabama. It happens. Like A&M jumps up and bites Alabama. Oregon jumps up and bites Ohio State. But you don't want to go out there on a limb in August and say that because, well, you just don't want to be that guy. Some people are cowards. I am not. That said, I'm very excited to see what Tyler Buchner can do against this Ohio State defense that's going to have a brand new scheme. And whether or not the dude learns to slide. You heard me, Tyler? Slide. Hey, man, take it from me. I'm a short king, okay? I love my short kings. You can't play big man football. That's just not going. You're not Josh Allen out there. If you go slide, everything's going to be fine. Also, hand the ball to Chris Tyree. That's fine. That's a great way to go, and let the defense get you the ball back. For Ohio State, hey, man, keep a lid on your defense and let C.J. Stroud, Travion Henderson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and the squad go put up 50 a game. Next on this list for me is Texas versus number 1, Alabama. I circle this game mostly because I'm high on Texas. Many folks know this. It gets blogged about from time to time. I'm also an Oklahoma fan who's high on Texas. So, I've alienated everybody. Because I'm out here telling you what I think and being objective about it. But I think that if Texas can beat Alabama, we have to talk about Texas making the national championship game because they would become the front runner to win the Big 12 championship. And frankly, if you beat Alabama, you shouldn't lose to anybody else. You will because you're Texas. But kind of like that Ohio State thing, once they were able to upset the $10 million man and the Tide, yeah, everybody's going to be on board with Texas. So Texas has an opportunity to make me look really good. They can pull off this upset. That said, most of y'all listening to this are like, hey, RJ, like I know that Alabama's going to boat race Texas at home. And I'm like, I don't know that because I think they're talented. I think that if Pete Kwiatkowski can figure out the defense and keep Bryce Young harried and under wraps, you forget this. A&M beat them. Auburn nearly beat them. With the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback who did not look like a Heisman Trophy winner in either one of those games. Honestly, it can happen. And I'm just here for that. I would like to see what the scoreboard has to say at the end. Texas keeps that close. We're still going to talk well about them. So I feel like they're playing with found money because nobody expects them to go win this game. It's one of the reasons why I think that Alabama has to leave no doubt and try to put up 42 in the first half. Otherwise, you risk getting into a quadruple overtime game like Oklahoma did, and you just don't want that. But if you do, probably going to hear a lot more rat poison, probably going to hear a lot more Nick Saban locking down stuff. But Nick is loose with this group. He really likes them. He called last year a rebuilding year, and all they did was make the national championship game and beat Georgia, in the SEC championship game. That's pretty doggone stiff. All right, number 3 on this list for me is Georgia, number 3 of Georgia, and I say versus number 11 Oregon because the game's played in Atlanta. They call it a neutral site game. You got Oregon traveling from Eugene to Atlanta to play Georgia, and you have the nerve to call it a neutral site game because they're not playing at Sanford. Miss me. Even if you wanted to say, hey, they are playing at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, you know where they're all, that's home base for them. They will play there in December for the SEC championship game. Dan Lanning knows what he's walking into because he was defensive coordinator on that national champion Georgia team last year. He's going to hope that Kelly Dillingham is, sprinkled some fairy dust over Bo Nix and can keep him upright as that Georgia front seven is going to be chasing him and trying to hurt him. Mykel Williams is probably going to have a show-out game in this one. If you don't know Mykel Williams' name, you probably will. He'll probably be a stand-up 5, a down 5, a stand-up 7, or a stand-up 9, right? That's the defensive line nomenclature to say he's going to go after your left tackle and you're going to try to do everything you can to chip him, but it's not going to really work because he's that good. You also are going to have to hope that Bo Nix knows something about the offense that, frankly, I don't know, which is to say that he can pull out a win like he did when Auburn went to play Oregon a couple years ago, or say a couple years ago, like 4 years ago, when they played against Justin Herbert in Oregon. He played badly for 59 minutes, 30 seconds, then turned into Superman there at the end. If you're in a one-score ball game with Georgia toward the end and you're Oregon, you got to feel really, really great about that. I think Tosh Lupoi is going to really relish trying to get after Todd Monken's offense and going after Kirby Smart because, again, Tosh Lupoi is a former Alabama assistant and a guy that was raised under Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. Both of those guys want to get after Kirby Smart in his home base, and it might be one of those like Josh McDaniels / Bill Belichick moments where you see Josh McDaniel get that one win as Denver Broncos head coach and then fist pump, and then it all falls apart. Might go that way because if you're willing to sell out to win that game, you have an opportunity, but Oregon needs to sell out to win all of its non-conference games because it's a death march, man. I'm looking at what they got on their schedule. I'm going, I wouldn't have put that together, but more power to you. For Georgia, you go beat up on Oregon. Everybody expects that, and you march straight toward what I think will be an SEC East Division crown and back to the national championship game with an appearance in the SEC championship game because, frankly, nobody actually needs to – we don't need to play the SEC championship game. We're post-SEC championship game because we're just going to put those two teams in the college football playoff because nobody gives a damn whether or not you won your conference championship anymore. Otherwise – that would be the reason that you get into a college football playoff. But no, we do eye test here, and we're going to do eye test when we come to putting teams in playoffs, and eye test when we go into the top 25, which is one of the reasons why I've kind of got an issue with y'all with my top 25. I'm using your eye test to put out my top 25, and y'all got your feelings. Come on now. You can't have it both ways. I gave you methodology, and now I'm giving you my eye test, and everybody got something to say. Number 4 on the list for my 5 most important non-conference games, I got number 6 A&M versus number 16 Miami. All right. A&M can't afford to lose this game. And Cristobal would have to go out and win it. So I think that DJ Durkin has an opportunity here to really show what the defense is capable of because they're going to feel real good about the offense in Miami. Tyler Van Dyke is a fringe Heisman candidate, mostly on the strength of what he was able to do last year. And if you want to look for somebody to have a Kenny Pickett year, look no further than Josh Gaddis and Tyler Van Dyke making it happen. They also have a couple of outstanding tailbacks back there, Jalen Knighton and Henry Parrish. Henry Parrish coming from Ole Miss. Both guys are speedsters. Both guys can get after folks. For me, I just want to know the offensive line is going to be good. And I know Mario Cristobal is a former offensive lineman. He brought Alex Mirabel with him because Alex Mirabel is an outstanding offensive line coach. Also, the only short king out there coaching offensive line. I really, really love that. Both of those guys are 2 peas in a pod. I think the offensive line is going to be good, but if it isn't, they're going to get boat raced by A&M. That said, you can't be talking noise like A&M. You can't be talking noise about putting A&M in that championship game if they can't go beat up on Miami. Miami needs to remind everybody that, yeah, we have the capacity to be the U. I ain't seen it. I ain't seen it for 20 years. I ain't seen it. I'd like to see it. I was raised on the U. Okay? Give me an opportunity to talk about the U. Otherwise, I'm going to make you retire the U like you retired the turnover chain, which is the only fun thing that Miami had done in years because it ain't like they out here winning national championships. You have an opportunity, put everybody on notice, you go get a win at Kyle Field. Okay? Just throwing that out there, right? Whether or not it's Haynes King, Connor Weigman, or, my goodness, Max Johnson at quarterback, make it happen. Put the clamps on Aeneas Smith. Can you do that? Can you put the clamps on Devin A-Chain? Show me what James Williams can do back there, 6'5" as a safety, a friggin' pterodactyl. This is an opportunity to showcase ACC football and the U and a place where you would like to recruit. You like to recruit Southern Texas if you can, or I should say Texas Hill Country if you can. All right. Last on this list of the top 5 non-conference games going on this year for me is number 25 BYU versus number 10 Baylor. Tough game for Baylor, right? Tough game for Brigham Young. You got the defending Big 12 champion, right? And a fringe college football playoff team last year. Things just go a little bit differently for them over the course of the season. Remember, Texas Christian had Chandler Morris put up 461 yards of offense on Baylor's defense, which, is what Dave Aranda and Ron Roberts had built their reputation around. You can't have any of those games if you want to compete for the college football playoff spot and get in there. On the other side, Brigham Young is looking at winning 10 games again for the third straight year. Had they played in the Pac-12, they would have gone 5-0 and been in the Pac-12 championship game against Utah, which might have been a better game because Oregon got boat raced twice in 13 days. And then Mario Cristobal said, I can't do no more of this, and bounced same year that you beat Ohio State on the road. College football is just wild, y'all. For BYU, if Jaren Hall is the dude that I think he can be, this ought to be light work. But for Baylor, if Blake Shapen is the guy that I think he can be, where you're just completing passes at an impossible clip, you're going to have a defense that can back you up. I really like Siaka Ika at nose tackle and Jackson Player at nose tackle. I think between those two dudes, you're going to have an outstanding defensive line. Can Dylan Doyle be one of those guys that clogs those holes and goes and fills people? Defensively, they're going to be fine. Offensively, I'm still waiting to see who the tailback ends up being, because Abram Smith was manna from heaven. It's a linebacker that they converted to running back, and he rushed for 1,600 yards, while Tristan Eberton was still pretty good as a tailback for them. You're losing a couple of guys that I thought were pretty good, and RJ Sneed, for instance, going to Colorado. And then, we got Taquan Thornton going to the NFL. Yeah, Taquan Thornton, not Taquan, going to the NFL. All of this is coming off the top of my brain because everybody's really over the moon about me being able to spit out all these names and all these players and all these statistics, but that ain't what you care about. You care about whether or not either one of those teams are going to play in the national championship game. And I got to tell you, BYU ain't Notre Dame, even if sometimes they would like for us to believe it. So you need to run the table and you need to give nobody any reason to doubt you. And you need some luck. You need Notre Dame to have a bad season. You need Clemson to have a bad season. You need some teams that I put in those top 10 that can make the national championship game to have bad years. It will happen. It's just whether or not you can take advantage of it. All right. One team that I left off here was Cincinnati and Arkansas. Just real quickly, I don't think that game has national championship implications. Full stop, right? It's on par with some of the better games that I've seen. But if I'm going to pick a defending Power 5 conference champion to go against what I think is, if not the second or third best independent in all of college football, as opposed to a 9-win team and a team that got boat raced in the college football playoff that lost a lot of its best players last year. It's no shade to Arkansas, Cincinnati. It's just the way that this season has broken with these outstanding non-conference games that we have. I'm really excited about that game as well. I had top 5, didn't have a top 6. Sue me, Michigan. Now, from that segment, I want to go to this segment. Top 5 Heisman candidates according to moi. All right. First, I'm gonna say this. Those of y'all listening on the pod, I'm grabbing the bridge of my nose here because I'm about to talk Heisman candidates. You're not new. You know I feel differently about who the best players are in college football. You also know I watch more than quarterbacks throwing it. I have feelings about this, so we're going to go through that. I'm prefacing all that to let you know I have feelings about this, but I'm very excited about each one of these players, and I think that each one of these players could prove to be the best player in college football. It's just not whether the Heisman voters are going to see it my way, and since they don't watch football, it's the only thing I can come up with. Yeah, we're going to have this. All right, number 1 on the list for me, Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud. 4,400 yards passing last year, 44 passing touchdowns, just 6 interceptions. He's got the tools. He's got the weapons. We've got Jackson Smith-Njigba catching passes from this dude for the past 2 years. We've got Travion Henderson going into what I expect to be an even bigger year for him now that we know that Evan Pryor is out for the year, and he's going to be the bell cow back. You've got Paris Johnson playing that offensive line. You got an offensive line that's long and mean. And you've got not just Jackson Smith-Njigba, but Julian Fleming, who everybody that wants to say something like, hey, RJ, remember Julian Fleming? Yes, I remember Julian Fleming. He was number 1 wide receiver recruit in the class of 2020. He's also joined by Emeka Egbuka as the number 1 wide receiver recruit in the class of 2021. And Marvin Harrison Jr., whose daddy's a Hall of Famer, and who has apparently turned into David Boston in the offseason. Have you seen this man with his shirt off? It's ridiculous. And then Brian Hartline is having a phenomenal stretch here as the wide receiver coach at Ohio State, putting 2 of his guys into the NFL draft first round for the first time Ohio State's had that since 2007. And what I think is, giving Larry Johnson Sr. a run for his money as the best assistant on that staff. I still think it's Larry Johnson Sr., and I will fight for that. That dude has been magnificent for Ohio State and really magnificent as an assistant coach. Says the world to me that 2020, Ryan Day had to sit out the Michigan State game due to COVID. He handed the controls over to Larry Johnson Sr. That is the kind of respect that man commands from his peers and on that staff. For Stroud to go win the Heisman Trophy, all they got to do is run the table. And not even run the table. Well, I say that. It'd be easy if they run the table. If they don't, go for 400 against Notre Dame, go for 400 against Michigan, and we'll call it good. Right? Because what I know about Heisman Trophy voters is they're going to watch the nationally televised games. They don't give a damn about what you're going to do with your non-conference schedule that doesn't have a number next to the name. So we're all going to watch that game on September 3rd, and we're all going to draw some conclusions, and then I'm never going to hear from a Heisman voter again until December, and it's going to just drive me nutty. Next on the list for me is Bryce Young at Alabama. All right, I got to put Bryce Young on the list here because everybody would have something to say about me not having Bryce Young on the list here because he is the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, but that also negates him winning the Heisman Trophy again if you're paying attention to any of how we have discussed and how people vote for the Heisman Trophy. Archie Griffith's the last guy to win 2 Heismans, and everybody wants to throw that in my face when they want to talk about who the best tailback was ever in the Big Ten. I'm going, the Heisman Trophy does not make you the best tailback ever in the Big Ten, but he is the only dude in the history of the sport that's got 2 of them, right? Now, I also think the Heisman voters are a little petty in that if Bryce Young goes for 5,600 yards and 60 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, a la Joe Burrow, they'll still try to give it to somebody else because they just don't want to have the same guy winning it back-to-back. That said, he needs to really put away the bad games. The Auburn game, the A&M game need to go away. He needs to have more games like the one he had against Georgia in the SEC championship game. And he'll have to do that without the likes of Jameson Williams, without the likes of John Mechie, without the likes of Slade Bolton. He's going to have to develop partnerships with guys like Jermaine Burton, guys like Ja'Cory Brooks, guys like, well, yeah, you got to throw the ball to some running backs this year. Jahmyr Gibbs, Roydell Williams. Like, you got dudes that you got to distribute to, and they got to keep him upright. But he's got the tools to go win it, and it's his trophy right now. Like, that's what it is. We don't see too many returning Heisman Trophy winners to the sport. And the only reason he returned is because he's not draft eligible. All right. Next on the list for that, probably the best player in all of college football, probably the guy that I'm going to be stomping on the table for, Will Anderson, who is a do-everything player for Alabama. Now, it's just, the statistics are just gaudy. 34.5 tackles for loss, 17.5 sacks last year. That is ridiculous. You have entire FBS programs that will not get to 17 sacks in an entire year. Like, it's going to happen. Usually, if you have a guy that is that productive, we're all talking about him being a first-round draft pick and maybe the number 1 overall pick. And shocker, it's probably how it's going to work in 2023 because he is that dynamic. 2019, I said that the best player in all of college football was Chase Young, played defensive end at Ohio State. Everybody wanted to clown me because Joe Burrow had a great year. And all I kept telling everybody was Joe Burrow had Clyde Edwards-Helaire behind him, Jamar Chase on the outside, Justin Jefferson on the outside, Terrace Marshall in the middle. What else are we talking about here? Like, honestly, he had the Joe Moore Award-winning offensive line in front of him. I love Joe. I think Joe's a cool dude. I think Joe's a great quarterback, but he wasn't the best player in college football because he didn't have to be the best player in college football. He had everybody on his offense. Ridiculous. Meanwhile, Will Anderson is going to go against your entire offensive line. They're going to move him around. He's going to bounce around. He's going to be in a stand-up 9. He's going to be in a down 5. He might even play some inside linebacker on some packages. I would not be shocked to see it because you were trying to get the most out of that dude. I'm also setting the table here. If Will Anderson is the reason that Texas can't move the football, I'm going to yell about it. Okay? If Will Anderson is the reason that A&M can't move the football, I'm going to yell about it. Okay? They got dudes on their schedule that I think should be able to give him a run for his money. And if they don't, I'm going to be doing the same thing I did last year, which is caping for a defensive player to win this offensive award. And don't give me the Charles Woodson stuff. He had to go both ways and play special teams to win the damn Heisman Trophy. And that's one of the best defensive backs ever in at any level, period. See, I said something nice about you, Michigan. Right there, okay? I don't want to be the dude that's always standing on the table for the defensive player because I'm an offensive mind. Like, that's where I go. I play quarterback. That's my, I'm a Leo. You get it? Like, I'm here to put on, not to be put on, but to put on. So for me to stand on the table for a defensive player means that I know I'm right. Watch Will Anderson play some football this year, and you'll be right too. Next on the list for me, Ohio State wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba. Look, we've had 2 wide receivers win this trophy in 30 years. We've had a total of, I think, 4 ever. The first one being Johnny Rodgers back in Nebraska, but many of y'all forgot that. Johnny Rodgers also won the Heisman after catching a felony. College football. Love this sport. Then you got Tim Brown in Notre Dame, right? I don't know, man. Sure. And then you got Desmond Howard at Michigan, who had to strike the Heisman for everybody to know because he ran one back. And then we got Devontae Smith here. So we got 2 players in the last 30 years who play wide receiver who won the Heisman Trophy. I don't think that people gave Devontae Smith the Heisman Trophy because he's the best player on that team. I think they gave him the Heisman Trophy because he was the healthiest best player on that team. Jalen Waddle is still a more talented wide receiver. He was going to do all the things that Devontae Smith got to do. You also had Mac Jones over there who was throwing in passes, and I was actually kind of shocked to see that Mac Jones was not getting more play for the Heisman Trophy, but he was a Heisman finalist, right? That also means, that one of the great players to ever play the sport, right? This long-haired blonde dude from Georgia that played at Clemson, okay? Didn't win the Heisman Trophy. This award, dude, it's all over the map. It's no offensive lineman will ever win it. No safety's ever going to win it. No linebacker's ever going to win it. Hey, we made Manti Te'o a Heisman finalist. Yeah, and all that dude did was shut people down, and then he got catfish, and now we're talking about it. I'm saying, I would really like to see you prove me wrong with the Jackson Smith-Njigba, because that dude went for, stupid amount of yards last year. Matter of fact, the idea that they were left off the finalists for the Biletnikoff list, they being Jackson Smith-Njigba, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson, was kind of asinine. Like, I don't know that Jordan Addison shouldn't have won it. He was outstanding. But I'm looking at what Jackson Smith-Njigba is capable of doing, and frankly, he did all that after Olave and Wilson were gone. But he went for 347 against Utah in the Rose Bowl. That is the bowl record for receiving yards in a game, and it was nasty. Like, he was running through people. He wasn't just taking the top off of the defense. And this is at a time when both Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, without a doubt, pointed to him and said, that's the best wide receiver of the 3 of us. And all those dudes did was get drafted in the first round this year. Ridiculous what that dude is capable of. He's going to be the number 1 for CJ Stroud this year. And I honestly think that Jackson Smith-Njigba was going to have a hard time winning the Heisman Trophy if CJ Stroud is his quarterback because, well, it's a quarterback-driven award. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba can have 30 touchdowns and 2,000 yards receiving, and they would still give this award to CJ Stroud because he's probably going to have 4,800, 5,000, and like 70 touchdowns if he's throwing that many to one guy, because you're going to have a bunch of dudes butt naked open down the field because everybody's going to try to bracket their coverage to Jackson Smith-Njigba at least to start. And then you're going to see Marvin Harrison over here, Julian Fleming over there, Mecca Egbuka over there, and you're going to see my man Travion Henderson over here on the swing route. You're just cooked. You're just cooked. Like, that's how we're looking at this Ohio State thing. Okay. Last dude on the list that we have to mention for me, Oklahoma quarterback Dylan Gabriel. Now, a lot of this has to do with his partnership with Jeff Lebby, and they're going to try to get the band back together and make it do what it do because they were pretty good when they were both at Central Florida. He stayed at Central Florida. Jeff Lebby took a job as offensive coordinator at Ole Miss, and they moved the ball pretty well with Matt Corral, who's a dude that I did not think was a great quarterback at all coming off of that 2020 year. Frankly, he threw 6 interceptions in one game against Arkansas. CJ Stroud threw 6 interceptions all of last year. Okay. If Dylan Gabriel can avoid that kind of outing, Dylan Gabriel is going to be outstanding because the schedule sets up for him. Like, the toughest teams you're going to play this year if you're Oklahoma are Baylor, Texas, Oklahoma State. Right? And there's a lot of people that have a hard time even saying Texas is going to give Oklahoma a hard time, but I'm an OU fan, and that means I know that Texas shows up to play Oklahoma. Even when they suck, they show up to give Oklahoma the business in the Cotton Bowl. They go 5-7 in a year where they had OU on the ropes, got the starting quarterback pulled, and then got the backup quarterback pulled for the starting quarterback again with a defense that was giving up more than 450 yards a game. You got to put up 400 against Texas for people to take you seriously, Dylan. That's what I'm telling you. Don't get pulled. Play good football. Distribute the football to Marvin Mims. Distribute the football to Eric Gray. When Gavin Sawchek gets some run, give it to him too. Drake Stoops is going to be there on the outside. You got dudes that can help you out if you're Dylan Gabriel. If they all acclimate themselves to the offense in the way that I think they're going to, they're going to get off 80 plays a game, and that's a lot. That's a ton, especially as I expect that defense to be the best it's been mostly since Brent Venables left. Just saying a lot. Very excited to see Brent Venables back here. Very excited to see Dillon Gabriel and what he's capable of in the Big 12. And also, people see an Oklahoma quarterback and they want to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's the way it works. Kind of like seeing Alabama and Georgia in the SEC championship game. You're just going to put them in the college football playoff. You got a quarterback at Oklahoma that can go for 3,800, 400, 4,500 yards passing, keep it under 13 picks, go over 30 touchdowns. He's going to be a Heisman finalist, probably gets an invitation, if not trying to win the award. You know how this worked for Baker Mayfield. He got there in 2016. They gave it to him in 2017. Kyler Murray played 1 year of football. Tua Tagovailoa got hurt. He played his behind off in the Big 12 championship game against Texas because they rate, because it matters. And he walks into a Heisman Trophy and number 1 overall draft pick in the NFL draft when all I wanted him to do was play baseball because I love baseball and I love the idea of Kyler Murray playing baseball, but he made the best decision. That's what that is. Thanks for watching this video. And remember, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos on the #1 ranked show YouTube channel.